Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nuit, Idées here at Alliance Française, Mombasa. Tonight, we will be discussing the Contactless Society, and I have an expert group of panelists with us this evening, and they are Dr. KIBUTU.
Hello.
Dr. Matthew EGESSA.
Hello.
And Dr. Kennedy HADULLO.
Good evening, everyone.
So tonight we will be discussing the Contactless Society and what has happened during COVID-19. How do we continue to make society without contact, held at a safe distance through the systemic mediation of new technologies, turning to be both the cure or is it the poison? And so when work is being done at a distance and love is being filtered through algorithms and our intimacy is disguised on social networks and we're under the influence of a permanent connection, we paradoxically move away from each other. So our discussion starts from that space. So my first question will be on technology. Basically, the question is about how does technology play a part in keeping us in contact? And as we're a contactless society now, with the social distancing, how does technology play into that?
Thank you very much, Lisa. That's a very good question on the question on what role technology really plays during this COVID pandemic. Yeah, now technology plays a very crucial role in the society. We've seen that in the last 1 year or so, when the COVID pandemic struck this country, everything came to a standstill. People stopped working, kids stopped going to school, and even at our place of work in the university, lecturing stopped. So technology was used. I would cite in my area of work to teach people online, because students could not go to class physically. Therefore, online learning became very, very important to transmit education to learners who are far away. That is one example of how technology has been used during this time of pandemic, okay, through online learning, I would say.
So how do we continue, as we know that human socializing within humans is extremely important, and that has had several, for growth, for learning, right? We've always been told that human contact is extremely important. So how does technology, how will it mitigate these, what forms of technology can actually address that so that people do not miss?
Thank you very much again. Yes, it is true that despite the pandemic, people still need to socialize, people still need to meet. But now, because people cannot meet face to face, people have been able to meet through video conferencing. For example, if you want to interview somebody and you cannot meet him physically because of the fear of COVID, video conferencing has been used. That's an example where you find you use video conferencing to interview somebody who is in a different location. Another example I can give where technology has been used to make sure that people are still able to socialize is like the use of social media, like WhatsApp, for example. People are still able to exchange messages without necessarily having to meet. So we have web conferencing, we have video conferencing. These are tools that have been used, for people to still be able to interact non-physically but virtually.
That's a great point for us to introduce Dr. KIBUTU to be able to tell us who are these people that are using these forms of media and how are they keeping us more in touch, or are they keeping us less in touch? Are they maintaining social distance, or are they keeping us together? Who are they and what are they doing?
Thank you, Lisa. Actually, the people who are dealing with, I'll start by saying communication is about getting in touch with each other, not only physically, but online, and it's about getting the message across. COVID came and it changed the norm that we knew. Yeah? But I look at it and say it has not only brought us together and gave us an opportunity to adapt technology, embrace it. Because I, coming from an African society, we are social people. Mm-hmm. But apart from being social people, we are not people who take technology or embrace it wholeheartedly. We look at it as a foreign thing. But COVID came and it changed our normal. And abnormal became normal. So people who did not even expect to use technology now had to embrace technology. You're not able to travel to, let's say, Western Kenya or Rift Valley, but you're in contact with the people there. Before, we looked at WhatsApp, Twitter, Zoom as a no-no. But with this COVID, technology was embraced. Technology has been in use. Technology became the only way we could reach out to the other people. Technology was even being used now to teach. Before, if a student came to class with the phone and it was on when you're teaching, it would be a no-go. But right now, we are reaching out and telling the students, use WhatsApp to send your assignment, which before wasn't. Email me your work. Let's have a Zoom. Okay? Reach a place where the government, and we come from the straight and narrow government system, was now embracing. We were now having our conferences, our meetings online, and everybody was in attendance. So bottom line is communication was there. The society is now embracing this new norm, which is a bit hard. But yes, it is coming to be with us. And it's now becoming the real thing. We were told don't shake hands, don't go out, put on masks. And now we have embraced it. And when you get somebody without a mask, you're asking them, why aren't you wearing your mask? Okay? Social distancing, which we never thought would be. But now we are social distancing. If I went to visit my mom in Rift Valley, the first thing she'll be like, sanitize, put on your mask, wash your hands. Okay? We knew we wash our hands when we were going to eat. But now we're washing our hands. It reached a point where we are using it. Using technology, it has made us become almost a cashless society. Okay? We are using air. I go to the supermarket, I buy my things, and I'm paying digitally, isn't it? The banks are now encouraging people to bank their money digitally, not to go and line up in the queues of the bank. So the bank is basically coming to us, okay? So we are either going to be using M-Pesa or card for your transactions, which to me is a good thing. But on the other side, it's almost an impossible thing, because then we are going to become more contactless. And psychologically, it affects, because I think a human being is a social person. They love being in touch with other people. You love talking. So what happens now? If you can't go visit the person, you're talking to them. So what are we doing? We are using more money. Okay? Because either your phone has to have bundles or it has to have airtime for you to either talk to the other people. We are now selling fruits, grocery, whatever, and people are delivering. In a way, it's creating job opportunities, but on the other side, it's making society more standoffish, which we are not very used to, but we are so slowly embracing it.
So great. So this calls Dr. EGESSA to who is being left out of this conversation, and what do we do about them?
Well, thanks, Lisa, for the question. Because I wanted to they call it throwing spam in the works. In our society, or let me say in our context, the African context, or even the Kenyan, maybe even coastal context, a majority are being left out from this digital being contactless, the contactless society. I would like to give maybe some example using the justice or the legal space. Access to justice is considered internationally a human right, in a way, being able to access justice. And since COVID struck in the country, there has been reports of increased domestic or gender-based violence. And when COVID struck Kenya, the justice sector players, they decided to stop court processes for quite a while, and they only allowed whatever they were calling essential sort of services, or let's say it's a certificate of urgency and things like that. So they started minimally, and then with time they allowed for video conferencing facilities and all. And the Mombasa Bar, the Law Society of Kenya Mombasa branch, is considered to have taken the lead in Kenya in the ICT and embracing it. But now, people who can't access lawyers, because justice should not only be served, but should also seen to be served. And mostly it's by people attending court. You're allowing the public into the courtroom to hear the cases and things like that. But the people who don't have lawyers, but who previously were accessing court and could represent themselves, nowadays they have no place to receive the link to, first of all, even access court, because only lawyers are sent maybe the links. These people, the Mamamboga, the people who are being maybe evicted in Kisauni or somewhere, there are some evictions in Nairobi. If you're not having, let's say, a representation, accessing justice, because even lots of the hearings have been reduced. But the positive side to it, you could say they are kind of marginalized. They are trying to reduce the contact. People who were in prison, lots of them were released on the petty offenders. Quite a number of them, there was a decongestion of prisons. So over 19,000 cases were reviewed for people to be released. Nowadays, police have been given they have guidelines on if you're arrested, and they can assess whether it's a very heavy offense or they give you police bond. So to the marginalized, quite a number of those, it has been a good thing, but it's a double-edged sword, because police having room for corruption and trying to, how will you assess which one is a very petty offense or not? But on the technology bit, quite a number of people have been left out. And I think it'll take quite some bit of time. We could talk of the e-learning, and because in my opinion, quite a bit of it is on the work, and it could be mostly on the middle class or middle income generation who can access the connectivity. But for a majority of people who don't have access, or who only access maybe SMS based and what applications, it's like their life, the contactless bit may soon be, if you go up country and all that, when a number of people are just somehow living their life almost in a normal way, only that maybe it's a lot more of washing hands and, so to speak.
Yeah,
maybe I could live.
That's great. Yeah, so with that, Dr. HADULLO, when we talk about this inequity, the inequality now that has been caused by the contactless society, how much wider are our gaps?
Thank you, Lisa. Let me give you an example. Recently, schools reopened. Let me start with the high schools. And my son is actually in one of the schools. And maybe because I was able to afford, I took him for online classes during the holidays. So in his school, when they reopened, it turned out that there were quite a good number of students who could not afford the online classes. So when the schools reopened, you find that now something had to be done extra for these kids. Another example is in our own place of work at the university, at Technical University of Mombasa. We reopened universities in January, and last year, during the September-December semester, all classes were online. So we assumed that everybody was going to go online. Now, when the universities reopened in January, it turned out that some students, a good number of students, actually registered, but they never attended the classes. So if you ask them what happened, they tell you, we didn't have money for the laptops, we didn't have money for the phones, we didn't have money for the bundles, okay? So the gap is there. The gap is there. Even in our own, in the university itself, all right? This digital gap is there because, you know, when this pandemic struck, most of the universities were not prepared for online learning, I would say that. Quite a number of universities were not really actually practicing on. So it came as, you know, it was unexpected. And universities had a hectic time trying to put infrastructure in place, trying to, you know, create, install software and all that, try to train staff. You know, a good number of staff also had never taught online, so they had to be trained. And, you know, the story goes on and on. So the gap is there. The gap is there, really. And it is actually affecting the way digitalization is being used, you know, to bridge the gap which has been created by COVID. So the gap is there, although efforts are being made to narrow the gap. There's actually a belief that the longer this COVID takes, then it will give people time to adjust, you know, to get used to it, to get prepared. Like now, if you go to a number of universities, they've already bought the infrastructure. So with time, that gap is going to narrow. But for now, it is there and it is being dealt with. Thank you.
So the gaps are, okay, so the gaps are not only in academia, let's say even as you mentioned, high school,
yes,
college.
Yes.
So there's learning gaps, first of all, because now when you talk about elite schools who did not skip a beat,
yes,
I can talk about my children's school, they did not ever close. So now there's a gap. Now imagine those age groups that have had to, right? So there's that gap. And even when you're talking about the geopolitical gaps of the industrialized countries, the developed countries who never skipped a beat and who did have, I mean, the United States, every single child gets a free laptop. Yes. Yeah? So those didn't have a problem. So like now, is that third world? If we were third world, I think now we are fifth world, yeah? Because now our gap has even grown wider. And if the gap is in everything, where is the gap with gender? All our vulnerable, our marginalized now are there, right? As Dr. KOVIJYA talks about youth and women, where are those gaps?
That's going to be a big challenge.
An issue already.
We already have an issue. And I think with the COVID, the issue became bigger and worse because then the girl child or the youth, let me talk of the youth, they were told go home, schools have closed, and nobody told them why. They were told stay indoors. Okay?
How long?
And nobody told them why they were staying indoors. So they ended up being the ones who'd run away. Okay? And go and party and do their own things. And I don't know if you realized or you heard, the media always heard about the increase in pregnancy rates, the increase in death rates. But most of them were not among the sick. We were also getting our youth being affected because accident rates came up high, drunkenness, alcoholism, use of whatever. And in the media the other day you saw the young Kenyan boy, 21-year-old, who's hacked his whole family. Why? Those are contributions of this contactless. Because I think if it was on the normal days, he would be able to have spoken to somebody. Okay? Remember, we couldn't even just go to hospital. Hospital also became contactless. If you're sick, you call the doctor and they give you a prescription, you go to the chemist to get your medicine.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it, it created a bigger gap, a worse gap, a more painful situation that we will only get to know the statistics of it after maybe COVID is normal or over. And then it came, they said, people above 55 and beyond are the ones who are dying of this thing. So these kids were like, oh, why are we staying at home? So us, we are fine, we will not die, we will just be asymptomatic and get over it. Then later it came out, no, they are the carriers. So COVID-19 has created a whole mess that the symptoms are now starting to pop up. And remember, COVID has mutated. And then remember, most of the marginalized are always in the village, or in the rural areas, or in the remote areas. So to them, most of them do not even know what contactless is or what COVID is all about. They'll tell you it's with you people in the cities. You people are the ones bringing it to us. Okay? Then they continue its business as usual, and then they are the ones who are being pedified.
Yeah.
So they are in a situation that is really, it's hard to put a percentage to it now. But the effects, I'm looking at the effects coming out 3-4 years from now.
So,
You would like to add something?
Dr. Hadullo?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Just to add something I didn't mention about narrowing the gaps, there are actually efforts that are being made to narrow the digital gap. I will take on. Let me talk on the digital on the technology gap rather than the gender gap she was trying to refer to. One is now that the government and the universities are becoming more serious. They are giving digital learning seriousness that it deserves. For instance, one is that the regulator of university education, they came up with the policies on how universities, should implement e-learning. Those policies were there never before. Like, if you want to do it correctly, put this and this in place. That is one. Secondly, is that the universities are working together with these telecommunication companies like Telcom to provide, not really free but subsidized bandwidth for learners who are unable to afford this. And then also a good number of universities are also offering subsidized laptops to the students so that they can afford this. And also finally, the universities are actually training their staff and their students. So those are some of the steps that are being taken to narrow these gaps. Thank you.
So as Dr. KoviJYA has said, so COVID has become the exposer, right? It has exposed our the most vulnerable and the weakest points of our government systems, of our education systems. And so, Dr. EGESSA, how do we, again, continue to narrow that gap? And how do we seek through the innovation hubs? How can they be used now outside of academia? It's not enough that the university students are having these conversations with the government, right? The youth, the greater youth who are unemployed, who maybe most of them have even been to the universities or the vocational schools. And so what happens to them? Who's bridging their gap? Who's giving them the subsidized laptops and the other contactless tools that we need to be able to move forward? Because we don't have, unfortunately or fortunately, Kenya doesn't have the luxury of learning from scratch, right? We have to quantum leap. So what is your hub doing? What is the justice that we're seeking here?
From how I look at it, maybe to reiterate whatever has been said, it's true the gap has been widened. And for the basic things, let's say health, education, there are quite some basic sort of rights that people should really access. But maybe even getting that doctor or calling the doctor, having that privilege to call the doctor, it's only the middle class and going up. So within our situations, when we're talking about people at the university getting subsidized, the number of people at the university, the percentage of those amongst the Kenyan youth or something, it's a really small number.
Already a
so it is a conversation that should happen. It definitely will not be driven by the government. I highly doubt it, because they've been badly exposed. But it's a conversation that we could think of innovations, because the other thing, as you said, the way in our countries we sort of leapfrog, we will advance and create solutions for our own, within our own environments as such. Still throwing some bit of spanner on this contactless, I think COVID, for our situation, it has brought in more contact, especially for the most of the marginalized people. Look at it this way, with the curfews, and so most people are sort of restricted within, and especially those who are coming maybe from the bottom of the pyramid, they're having smaller houses or whatever, and all of them should be within. There is a lot more contact in maybe families and things like that, and it's through that lots of maybe these other issues, let's say the gender-based violence or stress, maybe people in a family setup, they're not used, or the family is not used, the mom and the dad, they're not used to be in that situation together, in the same room, or the same for longer. And then, let's say with the job cuts and things like that, lots of stress levels are high, and it may need some multidisciplinary or some transdisciplinary sort of approach in trying to come up with innovations and solutions. They may not necessarily be contactless, but we should uphold maybe the health guidelines, but think through ways that solve our own challenges, because infrastructure-wise, we could be having issues. Maybe kids accessing the online bit. The government tried with radio and everything, but still, lots of people, or a majority, were left out. So I may not say there is a magic bullet, but with these conversations and even with the tech hubs, because technology or innovation will not just be tech. We could come up with just looking around our environments for something that will maybe stop or slow down COVID, but still flourish the ideas and our ways of interacting, even just socializing and all that.
To add something on to what he said, looking for a solution to solve our problem. COVID opened a can of worms. So we'll either pick the worms back one by one and put them back in the can and close it, or get a solution. And it just made me think, after the COVID, or during the COVID, Technical University wrote a proposal to Rotary, and we are having a mobile school in Ukunda. We have a university campus in Ukunda, and they are having a mobile school where they are looking for the school dropouts, standard 8, whatever, and they are giving them skills, competency-based skills. So you're getting young girls with their children coming in to learn how to stitch, how to do fashion, young men coming in to do welding, how to do mechanical engineering. And what is happening is the university is going to them.
Yeah.
The school is going to them, not them coming to the school. So for like 6 months, the university goes to them. They are taught in their area.
Yeah.
Like they come together, like 5 of them, and they are taught. And then after 6 months, for 4 months, the university will accommodate them and give them the practical skills, and then they will have an exam at the end of it. This is under the TVET directorate. Yeah.
Hasn't digital skills, now that everything is contact, I mean, it will become progressively more contactless. And I always hear about these TVETs doing these wood carpentry, sewing.
Yes.
Where are the digital skills? Where is access to digital? Why aren't they being taught how to code so that they can have jobs from around the world? Before COVID, that was the biggest push for youth, right? And that is still where the job market is, where we're moving to AI. Why are Kenyans still teaching woodwork and I don't know, sewing?
Okay.
University challenge to the university.
Okay. They're still teaching sewing. Because if this student has to be taken from where she stopped, let's say class 4, because some of them don't even have standard 8, they have to have a hands-on skill. And they have to start at somewhere. That's why it's competency skill. What you know is made better. And then from there, you can open a cottage industry. Okay? Or you can open something that will help you.
It's e-commerce.
And then after that, they can go. They'll be given a test and go to the next grade. Okay? So maybe they'll start at crafts 1, grade 1, they'll go to 2 and 3. Then from there, they'll now get the skills. Because even computer skills, they are being taught. It's one of the lessons. Communication skills, they are being taught. Business economics, they are being taught. Okay? But there are those who will want to drop out. This one who reached standard 6, somewhere in Lunga where there is not even a computer or a telephone.
Yeah. So this is
so
where we're saying, like, where the tools have to be.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's
but these ones who are
somewhere
somewhere and they can be taught coding. I know the hub or the whatever, computer hub, has been dealing with that. And the kids, they already always have that during the holidays.
They have the tech, what is it
Tech
called?
kids.
Tech kids, yeah.
Yeah, they are teaching them that. But these ones who are at that level, the ones who do not have, and they are trying to survive. A girl comes to class with 2 of her kids, and you don't know if first we will babysit the baby and then teach the mother. But you have to accommodate her with that. So those are the things you're trying to tell them. They are not children of a lesser God, but they are part of our society, and how can we embrace them and move them to the next level? So I believe that's a good step in the right direction. Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Just to add on what JT has said, your question actually, you're asking why are we still teaching our kids woodwork, metalwork instead of digital skills? Okay, the answer is that we have different careers, and we cannot do away with some of this metalwork or woodwork simply because everything is going IT. The answer is that these kids are taught at a certain level, they are taught the digital skills that are relevant to the discipline.
Yes.
For example, if you are in accounting, then you just do the accounting. You don't do coding per se, but you learn some packages which you can use in accounting. If you are in metalwork or woodwork, design, you just do the woodwork or the design, but there's a tool, a software tool, which they are taught at some level on how to design using a computer. Skills, So really, it's not about doing away with these disciplines like woodwork, metalwork, not really, but they do it. But since IT is needed in every discipline, there is the relevant bit of IT that is taught at that point. In the university, when you enter in first year, irrespective of the course you are doing, you are taught basic IT skills, introduction to computing, all right? Then if you are in engineering, for example, you are doing mechanical engineering, but you are taught computer programming that is relevant to engineering. Yeah. If you are in business, you are taught some packages which are relevant. So these digital skills are actually there, but they are only taught ones that align to that discipline, all right? So it's not really true to say that, we are not teaching them the digital skills.
Yeah, no, because we were talking about that quantum leaping, And so when we were looking very much at, again, remember, like those marginalized, that those gaps are increasing. So while the elite schools and the elite learning and, the middle class, upper class are doing a whole different thing, and then the other, the marginalized are learning these physical skills that our great grandparents were learning, so like, don't they become even, don't those gaps even grow more? So basically they don't get the chance to even meet them halfway. By the time all these things come together, by the time now you can learn the digital, by that time the other people are employing them. And they're their age mates. Let's get into a more conclusive area. And we were talking about, there's a study that was done by psychologists at the University of Milano. And the research paper they were looking at was Together Apart, the mitigating role of digital communication technologies and a negative effect during the COVID-19 outbreak in Italy. So they did this study in March to April, starting with around 900 people, and then it ended up, I think, with almost 500, right? So they were investigating whether the amount of digital communication technology, the ones that are being used for virtual meetings and all that, was actually promoted the perception of social support. Right? And then at the end, anyway, the results were that virtual communications, digital communication, actually reduced those feelings of loneliness, of anger and boredom. And most importantly, it still promoted learning and growth. So again, when we and we've talked about Kenya in general, but we need to talk about Coast in particular, because we at the Coast are already fighting we're the marginalized of the marginalized, So and this is why my particular passion is like, the Coast in particular needs to quantum leap. Because we were there, so my background is in Swahili culture. So if we were the leading economy for the world in 1000 AD, so what will take us back there? There was a young child, he did a junior TED talk, and he actually spoke about the East African coast right now being positioned to be the leading economy in the world. And of course, what led that was the blue economy. What will it take within the contactless digital age for us to get back to the blue economy and for the entire coast, 6 counties, the Jumuiya moving forward? And how do we protect our most vulnerable? Dr. EGESSA, I want you to start with the blue economy on this. And
from the blue economy angle, maybe looking at they're called the beach management, maybe
the BMEs,
unit. So
yes.
I'll look at it from a fisheries maybe perspective. Being contactless, maybe, but we could come up with maybe digital applications to help them do what they do best. It may not really make them lose contact, because the kind of craft they do is actually really contact. You have to go and really get the fish and everything. But in my opinion, the government has tried in different other ways, but I'd love to all the people working on solutions to it to have whatever they call the user-centered or human-centered design in it. Because if we pick, let's say, a solution that worked in Italy or a solution that worked in Japan, we bring it to our context, it will really, maybe the infrastructure, the literacy levels, everything is quite different. But if there may be some social investment partners who may want to really impact the marginalized, because the government right now we are battling with the tax issues, the budget burden and everything. But I'd see there is room for either development partners and other people. If we're coming to maybe try out solutions, it'll be best we have homegrown, like all these tech hubs or the academia, private sector, and even government itself. They could have an input in helping the people craft solutions that are really fitting in the environment. Like maybe the fishermen, in as much as they could be having, they're called the dhows or the hand dug canoes, but somehow they're experts at getting that fish. So we could tap into their knowledge, however much informal it could be, and create solutions that really work for them. At least having them included in the solutions, other than being brought a solution for them to at least being part of
that's the new approach now.
Being part of the...
And especially, as we said, we were leading the world in 1000 AD. I think these, just by the virtue of who the coastal people are, they already had the solutions from a long time ago. So where are our opportunities, Dr. HADULLO?
About the cost and how to bring them back to where they were before. Now, one way, I remember some year ago, there was a project which the university was doing, between the university and the county government, where the Technical University of Mombasa, we were asked by the county government to create, this is digitally, using a digital means, to create a curriculum for people in the industries, low-scale industry. These are people who are working, Juakali, they don't even have certificates, but they want to learn IT. So we created a syllabus for that lower level people on how to use IT skills, how to use internet, how to type with the Microsoft Office, and it was for free. Okay, and that, although it never took off because of one reason or the other, but that was a way of it indicated such a plan, if it could have worked, where these people are trained, on just people just from the industry, who some of them don't, if they have the experience but they don't have any paper, but they are trained on how to use IT and all that. Secondly, is free training offered, like there is the NITA, National Industrial Training, NITA. They've been organizing free certificate courses within the cost. And we've also been involved in the university, where we write syllabus, for this welding, this plumbing, these jobs, the Juakali jobs. Because so then these courses are offered for free. It is advertised, and these people, that one is ongoing, and these people are trained for free. So in that case, they get some skills, and then they are able to, to help themselves. So I think those are some of the mechanisms that can be used to bring these people up, maybe to where they were. Now, back to your question. What are the opportunities?
Within the contactless.
Within the contactless. One is that one of the opportunities, I would say, is that most of the universities, as I said, were unprepared when this pandemic struck. But if you go to universities today, you find that they have given priority to IT, and they have invested in some kind of infrastructure to run online learning, unlike before. That is one. Secondly is the element of research, where there have been funding from world bodies and even locally by the government, that if you have a title or a proposal, it can be funded as long as it's touching on COVID. So like for digital or a digital world, we've actually been writing proposals on how to use IT to train people, for example, during this pandemic. So there's an opportunity in research, okay? And number 3 is also in innovations. You remember when COVID was at the peak, around sometime last June, I saw universities coming up with some ventilators, isn't it? Although I don't know how far it went, but ideas were coming up.
Yeah.
Even some of our staff came up with the sanitizer, which was, these booths, although they were banned at some time, these booths actually...
the spray ones.
The spray ones,
yes.
Yeah. So those are some of the innovations on how to create these chemicals and that. So I think with those three, those are some of the opportunities that we have.
Dr. JT, I want to expand on that research and development, on the research and development of the opportunities. Then, in terms of the studies, what studies have been done and what can be done within, like what you were saying, the long-term psychological effects of what is going on, the long-term effects of the gaps that have been created, and then so that solutions can be found within that space. So what are the opportunities within that space to be able to do that, and what would you need and what is needed, especially like I'd say for the coast, since we're the marginalized of the marginalized. What would you call for the coast? To what can be done, and me coming from an investor space, what would you seek and envision for the coast?
I'm looking at the coast, and you talked about the researchers.
Yes.
Kenyans are good at research. Kenyans make fantastic researchers. Just the way he said, the proposal that was written.
Proposals have been written.
And many proposals have been written. If the government could just come up and implement most of those proposals, Kenya would be
Maybe
very
I think it's
far.
better to work with private sector because they would need those proposals to be able to do the feasibility studies and then
now,
to get the money.
when you talk about the private sector, they always have this corporate social responsibility or corporate social
CSR.
investment. Now they're calling it. If then they could partner up with the university and work on these proposals.
Yes.
Believe you me, there'd be a big change. Because when you say in 180 or in 1080,
1080, yeah.
Coast was leading in the economy, they had not penetrated upwards to the other parts of Kenya.
No, they were never going to.
They are never going to. And then
we were okay in the coast.
They were okay around here.
Yes.
But another thing is,
but they really
the government needs to
else.
come up and give the people title deeds so that they are not squatters anymore. Okay? And then there is the thing of empowering them, sensitizing them. Okay? As coastal, we are more of social beings.
Extra.
We love partying. Okay? We love being together. We mourn together. Even with COVID, we hear somebody has passed away, we'll all be there and forget it's there. Okay? And that's why when it first hit, COVID hit, we were the most scared. Nobody wanted us to leave Mombasa. You stay there with your corona until it went up country. Those opportunities are there. If the government could only hold the hand of the next person. Okay? If the private sector would hold the hand of the next person. If you talk of the private sector in Mombasa, I only know Mombasa Cement. He's doing so much.
Yeah.
No, Mombasa Cement.
Mombasa, yeah.
He's doing so much. All the schools that didn't have
the walls
he's built. Even police stations are looking nice now.
Yeah.
They have periphery walls. So if we could get another Mombasa Cement, 2 or 5, because there are many rich guys in Mombasa.
And several companies had their sources here. I mean, Absa Barclays, the first branch was Mombasa.
Exactly.
Standard Group.
What do they have to show?
Exactly. What have they done?
What have they done? So it's either we reach out and ask them or remind them. But another thing, banks or ownership changes hands. And when they change hands, they never carry the history with them.
Yeah.
They forget the history. They forget. So somebody has to wake them up. Because when you're changing, I think Mombasa Cement is still doing that. He's 80-something, 90-something. he's been on the realm for long.
Yeah.
So he knows where he began. But are the natives, the digital natives who are going to take over, know where they began?
That's okay. Yeah. So that's exactly where the
or do they
crooks
know
are.
where they're going?
That is,
Then it's today, now, and here.
and that is you've just hit it on the nail. And that is that's exactly it. And that's kind of where my work is. And it's about reminding the indigenous people of the coast where they came from.
Exactly.
And people without their past pretty much have no future. So, exactly. And that is, but that's what the colonialists did. You have to erase past so that people don't have a future.
And then the colonialists also knew divide and rule.
Absolutely.
So they divided them. Mijikenda, I think they're one tribe, but
so we need to so we need to bring that. They're gone now, so I think we now can
it's
do
hard
that
because they're gone and it's embedded. There's the neo-colonialists now.
Yes.
Now the rich.
So it's actually that's why it's not about learning. It's actually about unlearning.
We need to try and learn.
So our academia
in the contactless,
needs to help in the unlearning, and then.
But would they want to unlearn?
They have no choice.
Because it's hard. It's a whole political thing.
Yeah. So the coast has to kind of go back to stand on its own.
Exactly. But will they be able to do that? They'll tell
we will. Funny, see Kenya. Yeah, but we will. Actually, no, I think the coast has it's exactly what you're saying. All those things that we're looking at as our weaknesses are actually our strengths. So the fact that we're quite homogeneous, and we're quite homogeneous, we all want the same things. As we said, we all like to relax. So what is it going to take for us to just get there, Yeah. So I think we're...
If I get maybe to some bit of the opportunity.
Yes.
There's a bit about development. I don't know how exactly we should define development. Is it economic? Is it the GDPs? But there is an approach called the capability approach.
Yeah.
And they look at development as being the freedom for an individual to be and to do what they have reason to value.
Yeah.
And I think in as much as you're saying maybe the sort of wanting to relax, that could be development for that person. And let that just person be and do what they value, if that is what they are valuing to do and be. So it is trying maybe to enrich or remove hindrances that make them not be and do what they want.
Yeah.
But back to the other opportunities of the borderless, I think COVID or this pandemic has enabled us to do what we have failed to do for very long. I'll give an example. I'll just say failed, and people like the status quo in a way, and
the comfort.
Either the comfort or one is comfortable, another one they want to. It's some power thing. I'll talk about still on the justice space. Since 2003 or thereabouts, the judiciary has been trying to digitize the courts. The former Chief Justice came, there was the transformation, and ICT was a great pillar. With development partners, they laid infrastructure in place and all that. Even when the former Chief Justice, Maraga, who just retired the other day, it was part of his agenda. Though he was crying about funding from the executive and all that, but all that time they were not able. Like even lawyers, law has tradition. People have to be robbed.
The colonial.
And yes, so it's the colonial and all that. But come COVID,
it worked.
They had, everything that was not able to be done had to be done. So it was an opportunity for a good thing. And moving forward, even past COVID, there are matters that, like expert witnesses, they want, let's say it's a post-mortem. All of us have heard of Dr. Johannes Oduor. He's the chief government pathologist. There is a case in Kisumu, he'll have to go there to give the expert. Without him, cases were delayed. But now, the lawyers who initially were not accepting the video conferencing and evidence by that, now the expert will just sit, because it's mostly a formal kind of witness or evidence.
So
or
how
something.
do we hold onto that platform that we've had to climb and take it further
least.
and not descend?
So for me, much of it has at least some cultural change. At least from, let's say, in March, June, when they started till now, in as much as they've started opening the courts, it's a new sort of system or a new culture being embraced.
Because it's still a hybrid.
It's still a hybrid kind at this point. So from comments from some of the judges and even lawyers, they appreciate some good things about it and they can push it forward. So my thinking is, even in other sectors, maybe even at the cost or whatever, looking at ways of trying to embrace the good that we're able to really leapfrog, to achieve in the times.
Okay. So, in conclusion for our discussion this evening, what do we want for our society as we embrace contactlessness and still maintain, I mean, I think as Africans, as Kenyans, as Coastarians, as Wapwani, what do we want to hold dear as we quantum leap forward and become the innovators that we used to be and really become the example for the rest of the country as we always were? I'd like an answer from each of you. Please start starting with Dr. KIBUTU. Yeah, give it here. Please.
Contactless for the coast.
And leaping forward.
And leaping forward. We would like to maintain what we have now and make it better. But at the same time, we need to change our way of thinking, if not our lifestyle. Because contactless has made families come together more. Contactless has made us know our children better than leave them to the devices, the digital devices more. It has made us spend time with the children in the homes. Okay? And as coastal, in as much as we embrace our culture, in as much as we embrace our traditions, culture changes, it evolves. It's not stagnant. We need to accept and let the girl child go to school, okay? And we need to embrace and train the boy child on how to live in the society and fend for himself and
to support
his future
the girl
family.
child.
But the girl child is made timid in such a way that she doesn't even know herself very, very well. But what we don't realize is the world is not remaining behind. So in this time of contactless, the girl child is a different animal altogether. And the boy child has to start running behind her. At this time, for us to be able to live in this contactless society, there are so many things we need to think of. How do we get our economy back into shape? How do we get to where we were 1,080 years ago? First and foremost, the government has to give people title deeds. They have to know this is their land and this is their ancestral land. Not live in shanty houses like they're squatters. That's a no-go. Okay? The government has to bring food, equipment, technology, education, and whatever down to the people. Okay? And not just decide, let's say, like, not just decide in Mombasa. Okay? Decentralization came, the governance came, and all that. But how far have we gone? Why are we still having schools that are learning with no schools? They are learning under the tree. They don't have enough teachers. Yet, TSE says they've got more than enough teachers. Where are they? And why aren't we bringing the investors down to us if we are the gateway? or the in way to East Africa. Okay?
Yes, the simple answer is the coast needs to take charge of its own destiny.
It needs to change with the bank. It needs to come up and say, this is us and this is who we are. And we are a changed people. We are not the coastals who everybody thought we were slow. Okay? And I say this because we went into a competition the other day, Top Story, and TV, and Technical University took part in it.
Yeah.
And we started out as 35 universities, Kenyan universities. And when we went there, we were being told, wapi wa pwani, wamekuja kutusindikiza. It was very annoying. But strangely, out of 35 universities, we are now among the top 4.
Wow.
We are competing for the final.
Wow.
Yes. So if that is an example to go with, coast, we are going places. We have brains like the rest of the country. We are good at what we do. Only that we are polite to such a way that somebody starts mistreating us and imagine we can't do it. We can do it, and we are going to shock.
And we did it.
Thank you, Lisa. Just to add on to your question and just to put differently what JT has said, I think in order to maintain what we have achieved as far as contactless is concerned, I would say that one is the leadership of the coastal region. Let me give you an example. The leadership has to lead from the front. I think all of us have heard the story of Rwanda and how President Kagame is an IT champion and how Rwanda has always led in ICT in this region.
Yeah.
Okay, so we also need that kind of thing here where the leadership of the region lead from the front and they tell the members that, hey, look, we have to embrace this thing. This is a time that we need, whatever we have used in digital, let's not, let's not leave it. Secondly, is sensitization. Members need to be sensitized that whatever we have achieved is good and we should maintain it. All right, people should be there. Should be that
communication.
Yeah. People should be told that this thing is good and you should carry on with it. And lastly is a personal at a personal level. I would say every individual should change himself and say that it is time for me. Yes, I'm a coastal, but I have to change and I have to go with the rest. I can't be the same person every day, isn't it? So everybody has to reset himself and think again and begin all and say, now this is the path that I'm going to take.
I don't know if I'm really best blessed to talk as a Mpwani, because I could be...
As long as you're breathing our air.
I'm here as a Mpwani. Yeah, I'm just... I have a dream. Or you talked about what it is we'd like to envision and see going towards the contactless bit. For me, leadership, I'm taking it all round, and I'll give a challenge back to us, maybe from academia and research. For a long time, we've been doing fantastic research, as you're saying, do proposals and everything, but it'll rot it'll gather dust in
the
shells
institution
and all that. So the leadership in all round could be either within government or private sector, because we all need each other, and working in the triple helix, academia, government, and private sector or corporate. But we could be having distinct social challenges within the coast. It'll be us bringing ourselves together to tackle all these challenges in not in just a paper way, but coming up with actual solutions. But all of us should change our mind. You've talked of relearning. We have to be willing to unlearn, first of all, and then learn.
Yeah.
So we'll have to really unlearn the culture, let's say even the culture within the academia and all that, because it could
In
be...
IT, you call it what, reboot?
Yeah, you'll need to really reboot and all that.
And all of us are leaders, and we all need to lead from there, from where you are.
Sure.
Yeah, so looking up, especially at the wrong leaders. And as we said, together, I mean, instead of alone, what was the word? Instead of alone together, we become together apart. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for staying with us throughout this entire conversation. And as we said, as we're moving from the platform we've already climbed to because of COVID, we hope to take these conversations to the next level. Have a good evening.